talk about emotions, one of the key things that most people are interested in psychology, these strong feelings seem to push us around and buffet us, and we feel them so strongly. I certainly feel my emotions strongly. It sometimes seems like they're not very functional. They actually hurt us in life. And yet emotions obviously must serve a purpose. If we look at the study of emotions, there's quite a few things mentioned in your textbook. So emotions are covered quite interestingly in your textbook. They kind of go through a history of all the ideas. Let's jump in on the one by Schacter, S-C-H-A-C-T-E-R. This is one that's very powerful, and it has its own detractors and problems. But it also has led indirectly to a very powerful type of therapy that was hinted at by the Greeks 2,000 years ago, by the way. Schacter did something very strange, and I'll just show you part of this particular study. Schacter set up a study in which he wanted to find out the effects of environment and the person's own judgment and biology upon emotions. And so in part of this study, he injected 3 different groups of people with norepinephrine. What you and I would normally call adrenaline. And he injected all 3. Now, how do you feel when you get an adrenaline rush? You know, your heart starts pounding, you get sweaty, you get looking all around, you get full of energy. And we know how we feel when we inject people with adrenaline. And so he set up 3 groups. In one group, he told nothing. All 3 groups got the same biological injection, but he told them nothing to know what to expect. So when they started feeling jittery, they didn't know what to expect at all. He told another group a lie. He told them, you will feel numb, which is just the opposite of what you feel when you get adrenaline or norepinephrine rushing through your veins. And then a third group, he told them that you will feel excited, jittery, all the things that you feel when you get adrenaline in you. So you've got 3 groups here. 2 of them really don't know what to expect. One thinks, well, they think they know what to expect, and they're expecting the exact opposite of what happens to their body. And one is told the truth. They're told they're going to be excited. And so we've got 3 columns here that we'll take a look at. Whoops. And over here, then he either put them in, once they were injected, with an actor he had hired who was hired to act angry, or an actor he had hired that was hired to act happy. So now we've got this situation where we've got a 2-by-3 table. So he had some people who were told nothing. They're put in with an angry actor afterwards to see if their emotions changed, if they became more angry. Well, what he found was rather interesting. So this is usually referred to as Schachter's, and this kind of rhymes so it's easy to remember, right? Schachter's 2-factor, get it? Schacter factor. Schachter's 2-factor theory of emotion. I actually see it as Schachter's 3-factor theory of emotion. No one else seems to see it that way. But you've got 1, the biology, 2, what people are told, and 3, the environment. That's what seems to me would make sense. Now, the people who were told nothing got injected with adrenaline. When they were put in with an angry actor, what do you think happened? They're feeling all jittery, they can't explain it, they have no social context to explain it. The angry actor is stomping around, acting mad, cursing, just acting irked at the world. These people became angry. Their emotions moved towards anger. And the same thing happened when they were told nothing, put in with a happy anger. They became happy. Now look at this. Isn't this startling? Instead of emotions being caused by some chemical directly, and we have no control over them, all of a sudden the same chemical caused some people in this environment to become angry, and some people in this environment to become happy. That begins to suggest something. Maybe the emotions are something that we have some more control than we realize. When we look at Schachter's theory a little bit further, the people who were told a lie, same thing happened. They didn't know how to explain away these horrible, jittery, rushed feelings because they were told the drug was supposed to make them numb, so they looked to their environment and they became angry when with an angry actor and happy when with a happy actor. Not all of them, but on average, this was the emotional change. But now we've got the third group left, the group that was told in context what to expect. Told what to expect. Think about being given the information when you're dealing with stress about what to expect. Isn't it easier to deal with? Well, what happened when they told them they'd be excited, they got injected by adrenaline, they felt excited, put in with an angry actor, little or no change in emotion. Put in with a happy actor, little or no change in emotion. Now, this is more of interest than just academic. It's very practical when you think about it, because what it says is we can label our feelings and have some control over how we label situations of whether we're going to make ourselves more angry over them or more happy over them or whatever. And what this led to, eventually, it wasn't directly intended at all, it was another one of those happy accidents. Down the road was Albert Ellis, who I took a seminar from, came up with rational, meaning logical, emotive, meaning emotions, therapy. And just kind of a sidelight here, 2,000 years ago, a Greek philosopher stated, you know, it's not what happens to people in life that makes them happy or unhappy. It's how people deal with what happens with them in life that makes them happy or unhappy. Profound insight. So Albert Ellis, who studied under Freud, rejected Freudian psychoanalysis, used this research and a bunch of other things to pull together a theory and a therapy that basically tells people how to reframe what happens in their lives, how to change their view of things, how to make themselves less angry or less problematic in some way. So that's Schachter's two-factor theory of emotion. Now what I'd like to look at is one that is gaining acceptance called an evolutionary point of view. And I won't go into extreme detail on it, but a lot of this evolutionary psychology can be looked up from many different authors, but one that's very important is a guy named Buss, B-U-S-S. And the evolutionary argument is essentially that just as our bodies evolved to fit an ecological niche, so that whatever happened that helped us get the most babies into the next generation was likely to continue because they'd have our genes. That, like Darwin originally argued and was ignored for 100 years, Buss came out in the 1970s and started doing research that's begun to demonstrate for the last 35 years that emotions also evolved in the human species. They evolved to help us achieve various things, from protection to being able to live longer and therefore breed and pass our genes on to the next generation. And so if you look at what Buss and others argue, evolutionary, we need an emotional system, and we developed an emotional system. One part of that system an emotional system. One part of that system is the system has to tell us when we have a need. So it's kind of like a thermostat telling us that it's gotten too cold in the room, and it helps it regulate it back. So we have emotions to motivate us to do something different. We're angry because we need to run away, or we need to strike back, or we need to deal with it in some way. We're happy because we've done something that's worked. We're happy because we have done something that we need to repeat. So number two, that emotional system needs to tell us when the needs are met, like a thermostat. So if we're emotionally unhappy, that's our need. And then when we do something that makes us happy, that makes us stop pursuing that need quite so strongly. So we need to get feedback like that, like a thermostat. The third thing is that we are social creatures, so we need social help. And we need to help others in our social group. That's one reason we've been so successful as a species, because of that. And so our emotions are going to need to be shown on our face, or shown in our body language, or shown in the sounds we make, so we can communicate to others that we need them, or they can communicate to us that they need us. So an emotional system has to tell us we have a need. Number two, has to tell us when that need is satisfied. Has to, three, communicate that need to others in the social group. And so the final, fourth part of an emotional system that we need to have is we need to learn from our mistakes. Learn what works and continue it, and learn what doesn't work and stop it. We need to learn from our successes, we need to learn from our mistakes. So that's kind of an evolutionary point of view. Now, if you think about it, what is somebody who's heavily dependent on alcohol trying to do? Trying to get rid of all these bad feelings. And in fact, alcohol is really dramatic because when you try to get rid of bad feelings, you temporarily feel good. But if you drink too much, of course, it's always been a depressant and depresses you even further. So alcohol is trying to mask these feelings and get us on the fast train to happiness. Heroin's even more dramatic. What's a heroin addict trying to do? They're trying to mainline the solution to life's problems. They're trying not to have to work to solve the problems that will make them happier. They're using drugs to mask those feelings. Okay, so it's short-circuiting the emotional system, and of course, therefore, it leads to more emotional and social problems with others. Now let's take a look at one final thing that's just incredibly sweet and powerful, and that's this model by Sternberg. We've seen Sternberg previously when we talked about his model of intelligence. Well, let's look at Sternberg's model of love. You and I, we've all been in love. We've probably all been hurt. We've all felt the tragedy of having someone cheat on us, or many of us have. You just feel horrible. It feels like your heart's being wrenched out. We feel this attraction to someone, and then often that attraction tends to really mellow or even go away, and you're married for a fair amount of time, and you say, well, where's the excitement? How do I get something? And, and somebody tries to cheat or something to try to make things feel better. Well, Sternberg's got a really sweet way of looking at it. He says that there are three aspects of love that we frequently mistake. And one of those aspects is passion. And that's what we tend to think of as love. And of course, it's a wonderful feeling. It's there because it attracts us, it gets us bonded to another person, it gets us to have sex frequently, so a baby will be conceived and will stick around long enough probably to help raise that baby, at least until the baby is a few years of age, so it gets plenty of protein in evolutionary terms. And the passion's what's there, but that intensity of passion tends to fade, doesn't it? In fact, we couldn't operate at that high level of obsession with this other person. If we spent 30 years and all we could obsess about was this other person, we wouldn't get anything done. So, how do you keep passion in a relationship? And it's also the most fickle thing in a relationship. It kind of comes and goes, and there's other people that might be younger or firmer or more attractive or something more exciting. And yet, frequently those liaisons end in pain as well, because we're comparing a new exciting love with a stable long-term love. So passion is one aspect of this triangle, and he says that's what's natural, that's what gets us excited, but we also need to have something called emotional intimacy. It's not talking about physical intimacy, because that's the passion, but emotional intimacy. And it's the second leg of this triangle. Working at listening to each other, really taking an effort. In other words, instead of falling in love like we tripped into something, Sternberg is saying that feeling is powerful when we trip into love or fall into love, but we've got to work to create emotional intimacy. That emotional intimacy is sharing our innermost feelings, trusting the other person, talking about our anxieties, our hopes, our failures, our problems. And that's, of course, a lot of what women complain about that we as males often don't do enough of, is share with them on an emotional basis. And then the third thing that he says is the base of the triangle is commitment. And did I spell that wrong? I sure as heck did. Let's put that up right. Sorry. C-O-M-M-I-T-M-E-N-T, right? Yep. Commitment. And he says this is the second part of it that has to be worked out that just doesn't happen. So that what he calls a consummate love is made up of passion, emotional intimacy, and commitment. The passion starts out without any work. Eventually it requires some work probably to keep up too. The emotional intimacy takes work for most people to create and keep it going. And commitment certainly takes work, because there's always somebody more exciting or something around the corner that could draw your attention away. And so when he talks about this, he says you can have a combination of different types of things, and some people are quite happy with only 2 of the 3 of these. For example, you might have emotional intimacy and commitment. And that might be plenty for some couples, but other couples would say, no, goodness, we've got to do something to get that passion back in here. Lots of people have only passion, and it's all physical. It's this incredible spark, but they don't have the emotional intimacy or the commitment. Or you can have passion and emotional intimacy, which is a wonderful relationship, but without that working at a commitment, you still can be drawn out of it. So I think he has some tremendous insight into love here. That love really is made up of passion, commitment, and emotional intimacy. Thank you.